Tonight, Selena Quintanilla-Perez is being honored with the Grammy Award for Lifetime Achievement. To celebrate that, we are releasing a never-before-seen interview from our vault, an interview longtime News 4 San Antonio anchor Randy Beamer did with Selena's friend and fellow Tejano artist Shelly Lares. This interview took place right before the COVID-19 pandemic. At the time, Shelly said it was only the third interview she had done since her friend's death. Here's Shelly Lares in her own words.
Born and raised in San Antonio. I come from a musical family, and both sides of my parents were both musically inclined, my siblings, a lot of my family on both sides. So I grew up listening to a lot of different kind of music. I would sing around the house, I'd sing in choir at church. I would carry my tape recorder around anywhere and everywhere I would be. But it wasn't until 1982 that my sister got married and hired a Tejano band, orchestra. They were called Hot Tamales Band. So my sister wanted me to sing a song at the wedding, and I rehearsed a song with them, but it was an Olivia Newton-John song. It wasn't a Tejano song. So I remember walking in as a 10-year-old little girl to this band room and opening my mouth and singing, for the first time. And I remember their faces. So they made a call to my parents. I don't know if it was that night or the next day by the manager, and asking if I could go to another event they were doing before my sister's wedding, which was on the south side of San Antonio. My very first performance was at the Royal Palace Ballroom. And I remember a crowd just coming up to the stage, and that's when they asked my parents if I could join the band, and that's how I was introduced to Tejano music. So they got me singing in Spanish for the first time and doing, rancheras, cumbias, all the kinds of stuff in Spanish. And I got them doing English stuff like Madonna, Michael Jackson. So stayed with that band for about 4 years, recorded 45s and everything, and it wasn't until I decided to branch out on my own. I knew I wanted to get out of San Antonio. I knew I wanted to tour. I knew I wanted to have my own band, and so we put a band together, and
But that was you were very young.
Yeah, I was 10 years old, and then I was with them till I was 14. Didn't get my first record contract till I was 17, and that was the day that, we talked with my very first producer, Manny Guerra. And he said, you got to go on the road full time if you want this to happen. So that's what we did. We were green. We were green in the industry. We knew nothing about being on the road, nothing. My parents owned a business, actually. My dad was an engraver. He made rubber stamps. And they closed the business down, and we went on the road, just the three of us with the band.
And Manny Records.
Manny, yeah.
At that time, what was Tejano? What was the Tejano industry like?
It was mostly, there were very few females when I started at age 10. There was actually, to be exact, it was about 5. And we would get very little airplay. And it was mostly AM radio, of course. But the excitement, there wasn't really like a new generation of Tejano artists, like younger is what I mean. There was more of an older following when we first started. It wasn't until the early 90s, when myself and Selena, because we were the closest in age. The other women were a little older than we were. That's when we kind of started reaching the younger kids, and really the 90s is when it really started to evolve. But so it was kind of still fairly small at the time when we started.
But also more airplay. It seemed like heavy metal in San Antonio, what had been the thing, was kind of tailing off.
Yeah.
And the void was, and people think, well, it was the Hispanic audience, it was all Spanish speakers.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
No. I know for us, we didn't speak any Spanish. I sang in Spanish, and I would communicate with the fans in English. And, even Tejano radio at the time would speak very little Spanish. But it wasn't until they transferred on to FM that it just really exploded. And that's when we really started seeing big corporate companies coming into our industry, major corporations like Budweiser, Miller Lite, Wrangler. Then you had the big corporations, record labels, Sony, Capitol. Then everybody started seeing, hey, there's something here. So they all came in, and it really, really exploded.
And people, you mentioned Selena there, that you knew her long before either of you really were.
Oh, yeah. We had heard of each other because, like I said, there were not very many girls. And here we were both 10. She was only 7 months older than me. So we were very close in age. We were very similar with our upbringing. We were very family oriented. Our dads were pretty strict, and, very much, we had a lot of discipline in our household. So we were more excited about meeting each other because we were the same age. We met at age 10 here in San Antonio at the Market Square at an event. And the moment we met, we hit it off. We were like, like just two little girls, just, having the same thing in common.
Yeah, you had so much in common.
Yeah.
And now, how do you describe her from back then throughout her career?
Personality-wise, she never changed. She never changed. She was always funny, would give you the shirt off her back. From age 10 to when, she passed it, we were 23. I think I've only seen her upset, like mad, like twice. She would never be upset. She would never be mad. She'd always be laughing. She'd always be dancing. She'd always be playing jokes on you. And the funny thing is that we never talked about music. We never hardly ever talked about music. We would never talk about our careers. We would never talk about, the success that she was starting to see when she was getting played in Mexico. We never talked about that. We would hang out and we would talk about things girls talk about, shopping, guys at the time, or, it was like, but never music. If we ever had the conversation, it was about where she was going, like if she was going to leave for a while and she'd call me. And the only thing that she would always tell me is she always wanted me to go country. She loved my country music. She loved the way I performed country. She was like, Shell, you need to go into country. You need to be doing country music after this. And that was really the only thing. But we never talked about our careers.
And she started, at least one point, singing country. I mean, she's talked about how she liked country. She had to be dragged into Tejano because she didn't really speak Spanish.
She can sing any genre as well. She could sing any genre as well. She did 50s music to, pop, just everything. She was like we're very similar like that. Her dad was, a Tejano musician. And my dad had a conjunto before I was born with his brothers. So, but we didn't speak Spanish growing up. Our parents would speak to us in Spanish, but we would answer in English. So, but we were very similar in that respect. So yeah, no, she could sing any genre there was.
And that, speaking Spanish, like your parents, you couldn't speak it. That was part of the appeal of that generation.
Yeah, it was just the norm. It wasn't anything, because I know, for me on a personal level, when I started going to Miami and parts of Mexico, people were they took offense to it. They felt like you're not being true to who you are. And I was like, I am being this is who I am. I'm a Tejana, I'm from Texas. This is how we communicate. We can speak in English and then we'll start speaking in Spanish. We understand it. It's our culture. We have our own culture, So I would speak in Spanish and they would kind of poke at me and say, "Oh, I can hear your Texas accent." I'm like, "Of course you're going to hear it because that's where I'm from." It's like I didn't feel like I was, and same thing with her. She knew she had to learn it more because she was starting to go into, different areas all over the world that, more Latin areas where that's primarily what they spoke. So she couldn't get away with, saying things in English. But she had her heart set on, I'm going to learn. And she was very focused with whatever she set her mind to. So I remember the conversation of her having to, really start learning Spanish.
But part of it also for the young people was to kind of, I don't want to say bring them back to the roots, but for the audience here in San Antonio, it was kind of a pride thing. It was learning. It was one way to learn Spanish.
Yeah, and now it's so different. Now you hear a lot of Spanish speaking, among the young kids. So, which is great. I think everything just evolves differently. And a lot of things come back around. Some things change. That's just the way it is.
And now you think 25 years since Selena, you said you haven't really, I don't want to say talked publicly about Selena.
A lot of the fans knew that, we were best friends, that I loved her like my sister. And on social media, I will share every once in a while a picture or a thought. And it's like the fans they're so curious about her and they want to know, they want to know personal things and I will share some memories, but I think where people kind of forget is I lost a friend, I lost a sister, not her as the entertainer. I knew, hands down, there will never be another. There will never be another Selena. I don't care what anybody tries to do. She was a force to be reckoned with. I mean, she was amazing, and her music will live on forever. But I feel like I've never tried to, capitalize on her not being here, because that's just not in my heart. And there's a lot of memories that I just feel like I want to hold to myself. I don't want to share everything that we did and we laughed about, and I will every once in a while. But this is only the third interview I've done since she's passed, and it honestly, it takes me to kind of a weird, sad place mentally. I'm totally respect what her wishes. I mean, what her beliefs were, which is that right now she's asleep and resting and waiting. So I have to keep that. And as far as our friendship, that's my respect for her. So I will every once in a while, if I'm having a day where I'm really thinking about her. I'll post something and they want more. Like they just want more. They want to see more pictures. They want me to talk about it. And it's not that I'm not trying to be rude to the fans or nothing. It's just that was my friend, and I have my own feelings about it.
What do you think of how fans, and younger people and people who didn't know her and people of different cultures, and the legacy has seemed to have a life of it?
Yeah, oh man, I think it's amazing, because she very well deserves it. If anybody was passionate about what she did and about her fans, it was her. She genuinely cared about people, whether she knew you or not. And if you were able to get close enough to her, like physically, like to hug her, take a picture, you felt that from her. Or even if you weren't, even if you were, in the Astrodome and you were on the very top, she would still make you feel like you were important. That was just something about her personality, her character. So I think she very well deserves, that they're doing things to continue her legacy. I can already hear her in my head laughing about it. When little kids dress like her, or older people, or different people dress like her, dance like her, sing like her. And, I think she would really be happy about it, and she'd laugh about it. She'd be, it'd be something she'd enjoy.
And people also play the what if game. What if she lived? Because she had talked about so many things: fashion, acting.
And she would have done it all. I know, there's no doubt. She would have done it all. I mean, I know that her clothing and her design were super important to her too. She had a lot of things that she was passionate about, not just music. It was like, it's almost like she was still ready and willing to evolve as a woman, as a person, so as a businesswoman. But there's no doubt in my mind that she would have been, because no disrespect to any of the pop artists that are out there, but they can't touch her to this day, vocally, performance-wise. And she probably would have been a great actress too. I mean, there's just no other. It doesn't matter.
And there was a split then of half the San Antonio, even half the world. Who was this person? I had no idea who this. And then there were hardcore fans, and it still seems kind of like that today.
Yeah.
How do you explain?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, now people that, like you say, probably never even heard of her until after her death, are really starting to appreciate who she was as an entertainer, even if they don't even understand Spanish. Her music will still make you dance, whether you dance cumbia or not. It's going to make you move in some way. I don't know. I think it was still, Tejano music was still evolving, and she was still evolving as an artist. So I think there was still so much ground that she wanted to cover. She always dreamed about doing English pop music too. We were huge. We would listen to Janet Jackson all the time when we would hang out. Rhythm Nation was like our to-go CD cassette that we listened to when we were hanging out. So, she was a huge Janet Jackson fan, and so she wanted to go into that as well. And, and she did, dab shortly before her death into the English market. But I think it was just the way that it was supposed to be.
But also Tejano music, some people say, oh, it's because of Selena, but music is cyclical.
Yes.
And whether or not she would have stayed in it, I mean, she was already looking to branch out. A lot of people were looking to change Tejano music to make it sound a little different. Or,
Yeah, and we're all, I mean, there were other artists before Selena, you know, La Mafia, artists like that, you know, that branched out further than just Texas, you know, which is the heartbeat of Tejano music, mostly in our area, the South, and then, you know, out of the United States. There were other artists that were ready to do that. And that's the beauty of our genre, is that we're so diverse. We can do any kind of music. You know, Emilio even, you know, he started doing more country. So that's the beauty of it. It's kind of like our cursing and it's a blessing and a curse, because they never knew where to put us. But I think artists, everybody has their own choice. Whether you want to get away, like do another genre altogether or not, or stay here or do both, I think it depends on the artist. For me personally, I love being a Tejano artist. I love performing for Tejano fans that allow me in one show to do Tejano, to do country, to do 80s rock, whatever I want to do, reggaeton, mariachi. I like that. That's just me personally as an artist. So we can't hold it against artists that do want to continue to broaden their career and get out. You know, we shouldn't look down on them for that, and them saying, oh, well, you're forgetting where you came from. It's just, you know, some artists want to evolve that way, and some don't. Some are like myself. I'm perfectly content being here, and gaining new Tejano fans is what I try to do personally.
but some people have, and I think it's I don't know, maybe you do, that after Selena passed, Tejano.
The decline. It was a lot of things. It was not, I personally don't feel it was just because of her death. We talked about corporate America, when corporate America came in. When she was gone, I mean, it just so happened time-wise, a lot of them just bailed on everybody. You know, they just left. They just left Tejano music when they felt like we weren't probably giving them the money that we had been giving them before. So a lot of things came into play. And then a lot of the radio stations started playing more norteño, and there's just more money in that. You know, the Mexican fans will pay $50, $60 a ticket to go see their favorite artists, whereas sometimes our Tejano fans are complaining if it's $10 to $15. So see, it's all about money. So, you know, norteño started to come in around the same time. So there, to me, it wasn't just because of her death. Of course, her absence was severely missed, but there were other artists that were helping pave the way for Tejano music long before she came in too.
And it wasn't just, I remember more banda coming in or hearing
more
of that.
You heard more norteño, more banda music, and it's still to this day like that. They will be there for their artists, I mean, for whatever, you know, and I mean, it's just how it is.
And the Miami sound, I guess that was, I don't know, it's all kind of morphed.
Yeah, everything, I mean, we gel everything so much, so some of us are able to, like I said, to be able to get out and perform in Mexico. Some of us are not. It just depends on individually. But the industry as a whole, now I'm starting to feel like we're kind of making that turn in a more positive way. But it's taken, you know, artists like myself that have been around for 37 years to remind our veteran artists and our new artists that the mentality has to change. Everything's changed. We have social media now. We didn't have social media in the early 90s. I said we would have ruled the world if we'd have had social media when Tejano music, what they call the glory days, you know, but we're still out there. We're still out there, and we're still performing, and we're still selling records, and, you know. One
of the people that you started introduced Selena to, I think, I'm not sure, is Chris Perez, right? I was the first Tejano band he performed with. When I wanted to get a band together in 87, 88, another band of my own guys, we wanted young guys. We wanted young guys that we could mold and we can teach. So my cousin was attending Thomas Jefferson High School here. So my dad spoke to him and said, can you get some of your friends? And he's like, well, they're all rockers, and we're like, it's okay, we'll work with them. So he got Chris, and he got a couple of other guys from Jeff. And I mean, I have us on VHS tapes sitting down with him, teaching him chord progressions and just the way to play Tejano music, because he'd never played it before.
And that's when he was introduced to her because that was my friend. And I'm glad you brought it up because it's one thing I've wanted to say for a long time. It was brought to my attention that he talked about me in his book. He mentioned that he had started with me, and one of the things he put in there was how she was introduced to him through me. And I think I was showing him a VHS video of her performance. I was either showing him a video or her album. I can't remember exactly in the book. I didn't read it, but I was told. And it said something to the effect like, oh, and she's talking to me about Selena and I can see envy in her eyes. And I was super upset. I was super upset because that's far from the truth. I have never, even to this day, even in our beginning days, our glory days to today, have I never felt 1 ounce of envy, as God is my witness, for my friend. So I got a chance to mention that to him later on down the line. And he's like, oh, well, I had another writer. I was like, yeah, well, you still should have corrected it. But so he came into the Tejano industry through me first. He then went with Albert Tiger Diaz, and then he went with Patsy Torres, and then he went with Selena's band. So this was a little bit later on down the line. It wasn't straight from me to her. Or straight to her.
Because that is, I don't want to say the narrative, but that's how I've seen some things,
Well, if you've seen the movie, I've never seen the movie. I've never watched it. And people like, why? And I'm like, because I lived it in real life, a lot of the things that happened. So I know what it is. And I'm sure, a lot of it is Hollywood. They can't get into every single detail of what happened in her life, but if that's where you've seen it, because you see on TV, you see clips of the movie and stuff, and I do remember that he was, a rocker. He's always been a rocker, still is, but yeah.
And now some of the personal stuff, I guess it was in the movie and after, and that I saw because I interviewed him, and Abraham is this strong, kind of gruff, maybe more than Edward James almost was in the movie, but
I'm sure.
And then since then, they have taken control of that, and it's.
Well, they've always had control of what they do. It's their livelihood, and it's been the livelihood forever since they started, since little kids. I don't know why people think that that's going to change. It's not, and it shouldn't. It's a family business. It started out as one, and it will continue to be forever. Who knows? I don't blame them because I wouldn't want someone other than my family or someone that knows my life and the do's and don'ts and what's the betterment of me for me. I wouldn't want someone else outside to control that if I'm not here. I just wouldn't. And even when she was here, he did everything, he may have rubbed people the wrong way, but at the end of the day, it was his daughter and he was going to do it for the betterment of what was going to be best for her.
But like a lot of people, she was looking forward to going to L.A. and Miami.
Yeah.
And they couldn't, I don't know. It's another what if, but she might have branched out from him and Asia.
And she was, once she got married and was living her own life, it was hard because when you're mixing family with business, it's hard to separate sometimes. Because there isn't that separation. So I think she was starting to come into her own. She was starting to have her own thoughts, her own ideas, and her own things she wanted to do. And I think all along the line, she didn't want to hurt her family. She didn't want to go against her dad and, make him feel like, that she was going to leave him or whatever the case may be. Because that was always super important to her, how her family felt, especially her father. But I think you're right. I think later on she probably would have taken more control over herself, and I think her dad would have let that happen. But I don't. But being with her dad and her family since a little girl, she was kind of cocooned. So there were a lot of things as friends that I had experienced that she hadn't experienced, and we were the same age. She got out of school very young. She was homeschooling. She was in the industry 4 or 5 years before me, okay? So she homeschooled for many, many years. I went to school. I went to basketball games. I played sports. She never played sports, never really hung out with friends her age. She was always around her family and around the business. So see, I understand her dad's mentality of being, she's not ready. She's been cocooned for so long, you know, and I think as she started getting older, got married, and couple of years after that, that she really started to say, hey, yeah, I'm starting to learn. Even as a 21, 22-year-old, up until 23 when she passed, you know, I think she was still brand new. It was like a little kid.
Yeah.
A lot of times, you know.
So you had to introduce her to things.
I introduced her to a lot of things, you know, just everyday life things that we take for granted. But she didn't experience a whole lot of things. She wasn't like locked in her room and she couldn't breathe or nothing. It was nothing like that. I'm just saying they were all about the music and being around each other.
What are some of the misconceptions that you hear from fans that, you know, you haven't talked a lot about Selena, but you go, no, listen, or you get questions about? Is there anything that comes to mind that you would want to straighten people out on in terms of, you know, there's always talk about no matter whoever passes away, there's, she did this, or scandal, or she didn't get along with this, and I don't know. Do you hear any of that? Do you go,
I mean, I've seen like things that have been said, you know, in the media or whatever, about, you know, I know they talked about this doctor and they've talked about so many things, but I mean, honestly, I'm not saying that those are true or not true, but as her friend, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it no matter what, you know. It's like if my friend ever confided in me about something, it bothers me because what difference does it make? She's not here. She's not here anymore to defend herself, and I don't think she should have even had to explain herself if she was here.
And how about
You know?
when you say 23, that's one of those things that people don't realize. She was just 23.
23 years old. I mean, I think back to when we were 23, and it was like we were kids still. Our mentality was still not like now. I'm 2 years away from being 50. My mentality is not, you know. So there were a lot of things, yeah, that she was still experiencing and finding on her own, and even after being married and stuff, you know, I think she was starting to really realize what was happening, you know, and in everyday life, but. Yeah, it bothers me. And, you know, when I hear a lot of people saying, oh, they need to let her rest now. And I mean, when you're an artist and you have, you know, a catalog of amazing music, that's never going to stop. It's never going to go away. And I'm telling you, I think the curiosity people have is because her persona was so strong. Her character was so vibrant, so happy, so... You just watch her and you feel a certain way. So I understand that the family wants to keep that going and, you know, like I said, introducing it to the new generation. But that's when we lay our music down in the studio, that's forever. It doesn't stop, whether we're here or not. Look at Elvis Presley, Patsy Cline. I mean, they're still doing tributes to Elvis Presley. They're still doing tributes to Patsy Cline. Why not to Selena?
And so that you touched on it before. You don't blame them for it.
No.
I mean, they're not capitalizing that people think.
This is the family business. It still is. And I can guarantee you that if Selena were here, that's what she would want. I'm telling you, she would want that for them.
And this concert coming up, I don't know if it's outgrown Corpus Christi or...
Yeah, it's hard to say. I've never... And that's another thing fans have asked me. How come you've never performed at Fiesta de la Flor or any Selena event? And I will say this. I would come around the family because of my friend. Because she would always invite me over. I would spend my spring breaks over there in Corpus Christi when I was still in school. My friend's not here anymore, so I don't hang out with the family anymore. There's really no reason for me to, because that was our common denominator, was her. You know, that was what kept us knowing each other. We're civil to each other, of course, when we run into each other at events or whatever. But you know, they have their reasons and their artists that they would rather get, and that's fine. You know, I'm fine with that. I don't even know if emotionally if it would be something I would be able to do. I mean, because sometimes I will like throw in you know, one of my favorites of hers, which is Besitos. I've done it in my show, just like on you know, I would just react and start singing it, and the fans would sing it. And even then, it just makes me very emotional. So I don't know if it would be something I would do.
One other question kind of with that, some people are going to see it and say, well, you're not there, Chris Perez isn't there.
I get it. I get where people are coming from. And, but you know, getting artists like, you know, Pitbull and people like that, I mean, I say why not? Because she was just as much in that caliber, if not more, than these artists. No disrespect to them, to these major pop, you know, Latino artists, but I think she deserves to have artists like that represent her and be part of her tribute, you know, because I knew that she probably would have run circles around everybody, honestly, you know, but.
And now one other thing with it, she had talked about what she was doing a Coca-Cola commercial, and I shot her being photographed for an Agree shampoo commercial.
I remember that.
That, you know, she was, I mean, that was part of all of you, what you did. And because you were so young, you were the only women. How did you feel about that? How did she feel about that as a, you know?
I know she was super excited when she did when she got the Coca-Cola deal. I mean, she was like, because that was unheard of in our industry at the time. She was really the first artist. I mean, she and Emilio were the first ones to get the big corporate, you know, companies, and then I got Wrangler and Miller Lite, but she was really excited about it because she liked she liked to drink Coca-Cola, and then I mean, she just was happy that a company that big was really taking interest in her. It was a huge compliment to her, and she still was like, wow, can you believe it, type thing. She never really grasped how much talent she had, but that was just the humble side. That was just the humble side of her.
You have any other embarrassing personal questions that I should ask on camera?
No,
about 11 years ago.
What I want fans to know is that, you know, if they don't know already, you know, that is someone that will always be special to me, and I pray that we will meet again one day. But I have the utmost respect from an artist to artist, but it doesn't even come close to how I felt personally as my friend and my sister. That was like someone, we had our own friendship, we had our own relationship, and I carry it very close to my heart. So, you know, if I don't talk about it a lot or I don't participate in the tributes, it's not because, you know, for any negative reasons. It's just that I just choose not to. I choose not to, and that's my choice. And I have that's every right to do that.
Want to protect
I just want to keep that to myself. Because especially now in this day, I'm very personable with my fans. They know everything there is to know about me. Believe me, they know. And I share a lot of things with them. But there's certain things that I don't. And that's one of them. I don't go into a whole lot of details. Because I mean, I have a lot of funny memories. Just know that I have a lot of funny memories, you know, that we have shared. But one that I will share with the fans, because I know they like to know, is I really knew that she was someone special to me when I spent spring break in Corpus one year. I got sick. I got tonsillitis. And I didn't want to come back home. I wanted to stay. We wanted to hang out. And she's like, I'm going to take you to the doctor, because I was running a fever and stuff. And I was like, okay. And I remember she walked me into the doctor's office, and it's just us two. And the doctor comes in and, you know, introduces himself, and he goes, are you her mom? And she's like, no. But we were always joking, because she was always so much taller than me. And, you know, she's like, you look like a little kid. And she would always tease me about that. And I just never let her forget that. But we went to her house, and I will never forget. She said, just lay down, rest. I'll be back. She went and she bought my medications. And the next thing I know, she's walking upstairs with a little tray of soup and crackers and my medicines. And I was like, that's my friend. That's who I miss. And, you know, the music, that's just a given. The music is a given. But as a person, that's why I hold them. Because they get me emotional and I start getting in this weird place. And it's like, I'd rather just keep them here and here.
And now also about your music. I don't want to say while I have you here, but people have kind of, maybe the media have focused on the past so much because of Selena. Tell me about today and where music is here and for you.
Yeah, you touched on it exactly the way that it has been. Our mentality is still then, you know, and for some reason, our veteran artists, you know, are just starting to, you know, step out of the box, push the envelope a little bit musically. I've become like a huge mentor to a lot of the new artists. I do a showcase now in Las Vegas for the Tejano Music National Convention. It's called Shelly's All American Showcase. I started that with Sarah Chavez because I wanted to introduce the new bands to a higher platform. And, you know, the fans that go to Vegas are hardcore Tejano music fans. So I've kind of taken on that mentor. I get inundated on a daily questions from new artists and whatever. And I tell them, I'm like, guys, it's not like it was in the 90s anymore. Because when the dust settled and all the corporate companies were gone, who was left standing? But maybe very few veteran artists. That's it. All the Joe Schmoes that came in with one-hit wonders because they all wanted to be part of Tejano music in the 90s are gone. So it was like it fell on our shoulders. We're like, okay, what are we going to do now to help the new generation? And it's kind of like I go back to blessing and a curse because now we have social media. Some of our new artists feel that because they have followers that they're entitled to a lot of the calling the shots. And I was like, no, it's the one thing that hasn't changed is you still got to pay your dues. But our genre is now we have a lot of digital downloading. That's how things are nowadays. But see, a lot of our hardcore Tejano fans don't digital download music. They still want the hard copy CD. So they're still in that old school mentality. So we're kind of in a balance where we can't go straight to where everything's new, technology is different, everything's different. We have to kind of maintain this balance. And I think that's where a lot of the artists are still trying to find it. I found mine. I know where mine is at, but that's up to every individual artist. So right now we're just really having to teach the new artists that it's not just getting up there and singing and taking pictures. And, you know, first and foremost, if you want to be around for a long time and you want you want to have the longevity and the stamina in the industry, you have to handle it like a business. And that's the first thing I've done. My parents taught me that from day one. You have to lay down the ground rules with band members, with your business, with promoters. You know, there's so many angles that you have to look at it in. And everybody's telling me, Shelly, you got to start a podcast because there's so many areas to talk about. But I try to educate anyone that asks me, whether they're veteran art. I still have my veteran artists even call me, it's funny. What do you do? Or what do you think I should do? But I think we're kind of in a limbo, but we have so many talented new Tejano artists that are come up. I just ask the fans, we gotta support it.
And you do more producing than people would think now, as
I
well
do a
as
lot of
writing
producing
and performing. But do you see more people? Like you said, you're mentoring some. After what happened to Amelia, after what happened to Selena, that I don't want to say handicapped, but didn't advance.
I think because a lot of them were like, you know, it's almost like follow the leader, you know, and majority of our artists and musicians, I think, are that way. They're like, they kind of want to go with the person that's leading the way, and we have to start to realize that we're all different. Every Tejano artist that you come across are not the same. I mean, we all have something to bring to the table in some different way, in some way, shape, or form. You know, one of the most successful things I did was Las Tres Divas. Elida Reina, Stephanie Montiel, and myself. We toured on the other side of the world. But what made us so unique is that we were all three of us female, granted, in the industry for a while. All of us, you know, over 20 years altogether, you know, like individually rather. but we brought different things to the table. So if our musicians and our artists would have that mentality that, hey, I can set my own path, and it's going to help the betterment of the industry. Our Tejano artists right now they're so like this, and we need to really broaden our mentality, open up to bigger and better things for our industry. And that's kind of where everybody's a little stuck, but it's kind of coming around.
Do you think it was like that in the 90s? I mean, you had Mas La Mafia, you had La Fiebre, you had different sounds, all, where now it's, I don't know, is it?
The sound, all the different sounds are still there. Even more now, there's different that you'd never heard in the 90s. But, like you said, they really do. They live in the past, and they
Is part of it the airplay, the focus?
A lot of it has to do with everything.
The
media promoting, airplay, internet station has come out, which has been great to us. On the business side, it's hard because now some of these internet stations, they don't report. So we as songwriters and song publishers, we're not getting royalties for airplay. So see, it's kind of, we make a jump forward and we take 10 back. It's like, but it's just, they just see, oh, I'm going to start a station. It's the same thing. Oh, I'm going to start singing. There's a way that you got to set everything up as a business side. You got to do everything. You should do everything a certain way, but not everybody works that way. But there's so many new sounds right now that are out there, man, so many talented artists. And I think they're just starting to find their way. I had a meeting with 3 of the new girls that are upcoming in our industry because I wanted to pick their brains. I wanted to see what they see right now and what they expect. And a lot of them are afraid to kind of stand their ground as a woman in the industry. And they're like, yeah, but you can call the shots if you want to. I'm like, it was like this from day one. I'm talking about like when you get in your band together. I'm like, guys, look, I need you guys. You're a necessity, but you're also an employee. It's still going to be my business. I'm like, it's all communication, and it's how you carry yourself as a woman and, or a man, and how you get your business going. But I think it's starting to slowly transition. Our stations are still finding their way, but we still have some very hardcore, strong Tejano stations out there.
5, 10, 15 years from now, where do you see Tejano? Where do you see yourself? What do you want to do?
Well, I mean, I won't be on the road anymore. Because the reason I started Shell Shock Records 3, my label, was because I wanted to sign artists. I haven't yet. I did that because I wanted to gain control of my music, because we were so, in those glory years, aside from Sony, more the independent labels, I mean, they just, man, they used us as a mop. They used us and ring us out, and it was just bad. We made them a lot of money, and we never saw it. And so I was tired of that. I was tired of going to places like Walmart's, H-E-B's, and not seeing my music there. And I'm like, I need to know where my music is being distributed, where it's not being distributed. So that's what made me open my own label and have control, 100% control of what I do, how I do, when I do, what I don't do. So my goal is to sign artists, not only in Tejano music, but I want to sign other genres. But I don't feel I can give my artists my 150% if I'm still on the road, because it takes a lot of time and effort, and I don't want to make them feel like I felt, that they're just on the back burner.
But you just played California. You got some other dates. Where can fans see you coming up?
Hopefully, I'm going to DC. I'm working on that right now. We're trying to go back into Idaho. Well, we hopefully going to Idaho and Washington State for the first time. We just did Oregon this past year. 2019 was amazing for me. I was very busy. Of course, Fanfare's coming around, so we're always excited for the fans. We're going to be here in San Antonio during Fanfare. Of course, I hit the strong cities like, Houston and the Valley and stuff. But this year, the goal is to branch out a little more out of state to really, get the fans going and continuing to support Tejano.
You'll be traveling for a while, but not long term?
Not very long. I still want to be part, and everybody's like, what are you talking about? You're in your prime. I'm like, I want to stop doing it while I still love it. You know what I mean? I don't want to have any like, oh man, I don't want to get in the van and be like, oh, I gotta go here. I don't want to do that. I want to bow out gracefully as a touring artist. I'll still be very involved, like I said, because I would rather be in the studio producing and writing and arranging than on stage any day. That's where I'm most comfortable. That's where I love to be, on the creative side of the music. Not that I don't enjoy seeing the fans, because I've been so blessed with 3 generations of Shelly Lares fans. And, you know, it's very rewarding. But there's another chapter of my life, and there's another part of the music that I want to do as well. And that's why I'm trying to educate these younger, because I want to be able to know that Tejano music is in good hands.
Do you have an idea? Okay, 3 years from now, 2 years? I mean, do you have
it's
that?
It's going to be probably 5 or less then. Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, if God has me here before then, it's whatever God has for me. I mean, however long he wants me to be here, I just want to be here still inspiring people. And I've told my fans before, I will be a Tejano artist till I no longer do it, or I'm no longer here, whatever comes first. Because this is who I am. This is the genre that I am passionate about. This is the genre that I want to go on for decades and years and years and years to come. And it's a part of my life, a huge part of my life.
And so are your favorite songs that you've done from years ago, or the one you're working on right now?
I think now. I do like the hits, because I always tell my fans, you can't get to where you're going if you forget where you came from. So, but what I'm doing now is stuff that I've only dreamed about doing. Right now, my new single that I'm working on is something that I've wanted to incorporate in my music for many years. I grew up I love Glenn Miller. I love big band orchestra. And I always wanted to implement it in my music in some way. And I've always known that there's been, you know, groups in Puerto Rico, Colombianos, that have done orchestra in the 30s that can definitely, you know, kind of blend with Tejano music. So the song that I'm doing is actually from 1937, and I'm actually using a 9-piece orchestra in my cumbia on the new record. So, and it's exciting to see these musicians that have been around for years. El Gomez, Ernie Cancino. These are musicians that have played for the best of the best, and to see them being challenged and excited about new Tejano music. See, that's what I want. I want to continue to do that. I'm not creating anything new. I'm bringing it back to life and just adding a different spin on it. But that's what Tejano music is. We grab from all different genres.
Are you producing now? Where do you produce that?
I work with Sevi Contreras at Slack Monster Studios. That's where I record. So he's like my co-producer. He's the hands of what I do, because I'm not an easy person to work with, because I'm all over the place when I'm being creative. Like, I mean, I can't get the words out fast enough, or what I want, the ideas fast enough. So he'll go take a cigarette break, and I'm working on the music, and then I just say, okay, come back in, this is what I want, and he records it. So, but I love being creative. I have, before I retire, I'm already 4 CDs in, Randy. And I wish that I can plug a USB right here and I could record it, because my life would be so much easier. But that's the fun part, is the process. I'm going to do a duet CD. I do want to do, in my duet CD, it's going to be with Tejano artists, but it's going to be different genres. I want to know what their influences are, whether it's jazz or rock or Tejano or mariachi. So it's going to be duets, but the genres, it's going to be a lot of different things, but with Tejano artists, because I know how versatile they are. And I do want to do a country album, only because my friend always asked me to do one. And I have Christian music that I want to record too. So, but they're already done in my mind.
Wow. You got a fast mind.
In my head, they're done.
That's cool.
They're done.